Alright, in this video we're going to take you through how to set up a detail section view where the callout information that gets placed by the material tag tool is going to call out the information and the text that we want to be read. So half-inch gypsum wallboard, if you were to go ahead and use your material tag without setting this up, it'll just say gypsum wallboard. So we would have to go back and then type in half-inch somewhere else to create a true detailed section drawing. So to go ahead and do this and get started, we're going to have to create the call out first. So we'll go ahead and jump into where you have a section view created. And then we're going to zoom in on the relationship between the floor and the wall. At this point, we need to be looking at this in a specific manner. So I'll go to my View tab, and then almost underneath the View tab itself, it says Call Out. So we'll pull down the Call Out tool and see what the options are. And we're going to work with the standard rectangle that has filleted corners and gives us a call out label. So we'll grab rectangle. And then from this point, we're just going to go ahead and click and allow this to pull what would be a standard call out window. And then click again. And that creates the call out for us. This is where now we want to take and then select or hit escape twice. And then select the call out line, and we want to move this call out label away from all of this other text. We don't want all of this other text to get mixed up in this drawing. So we'll go ahead and pull that out of the way so we can read it. Right. Now that this has been done, there is a detailed call out that has been created that if we come over here to our sections, we can go to section 1 call out 1, and I can double click on that call out. This is that call out that was created. Now you can see that our levels are running all over our call out. So I'm going to go ahead and change the scale of this call out immediately. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to make it say half-inch. Let's even make it slightly larger. We'll do 3/4 of an inch equals a foot so that we can see the levels, but then we can also see the details in the wall. Now the details aren't showing up because we need to turn on the detail or the fine display tool next to our scale at the bottom of the screen. Now we can zoom in and we can clearly see that we have a stud layer, a gypsum wallboard layer, we have a finished floor, a subfloor, and everything is lining up properly. Our subfloor or our sheathing is running past, and then our siding is running past also. So we can go ahead now, we can start looking to tag these materials. Okay, when you start setting up tags for these materials that you've already set up in the wall and the floor, I'm going to go and hit the annotation tab button at the top of the screen, and I'm going to find my material tag tool. When I find the material tag tool, which we've used before, and I mouse over these different materials, you can see the names changing. Okay. Now, when I mouse over gypsum wallboard, if I select it and I pull this tag up and then I click twice, because you have to click twice to get this to show up without an additional elbow. All right, go ahead and click twice. It says gypsum wallboard. Well, in a detailed section view, we really wanted to give the size of the material as well. How thick is that material? All right, so with that set up, we're going to then change this in the material library so it actually says half-inch gypsum wallboard. All right, our stud, this says wood framing insulated. Well, that's great, but this wood framing actually has a size. This is a 2x6 stud wall, and it is insulated. So we're going to go in and change up some of that information. Here, we're going to go ahead and drop the OSB. This is the OSB or the sheathing, and this is OSB oriented strand board Aspen. In a technical construction document, we would not need to say OSB oriented strand board. We can change this so it's a little easier to read, and we put the size in. Last thing I'm going to do is go ahead and drop in soft wood clapboard siding. Now, what just happened is we got a little error that popped up that said it's not visible. The reason why it's not visible, I hit escape twice to get out of my material tag tool, is because this is the annotation crop and this is the view crop. Those are visible because they're checked over here in the properties button. What we'd have to do is just drag this out a little bit more. If I don't want to make the view visible larger, but I want to get the annotation, I can just drag out the annotation crop. So I can hide things by making this smaller, or I can make things show up by pulling it out further. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and jump into the materials to then start changing these up. Okay, so I'm going to select this wall so that the wall is highlighted. Then I'm going to head over to Edit Type, grab the Edit for the structure of the wall, and then here we're going to start down here at Gypsum Wallboard. Go ahead and select the Gypsum Wallboard, select the search for the material library, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this Gypsum Wallboard by selecting this little pull down next to my material button here, and it's going to say here create new or duplicate selected. I just want to duplicate the selected material. Now it says Gypsum Wallboard with a 1 after it, and that's where I'm going to use my arrows on my keyboard to move over to the front of Gypsum Wallboard and type in a 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to get rid of that number 1 afterwards. So now what I want to do is I want to jump into the identity of this particular feature here, this piece of material. And it says that the name is 1/2 inch gypsum wallboard, and then in the description I also want to change this to 1/2 inch gypsum wallboard. By doing that, and then come down and hit apply, and then I can hit OK, and then you can see that that material should change here in the wall itself. Then I should be able to hit OK, hit apply again, and then hit OK on the wall itself. And now the material tag that I had placed before now reads 1/2 inch gypsum wallboard. That can be done for the rest of your materials. We can go ahead and jump into any one of these pieces of material here and then start editing them in the wall, in the materials, so that this information will look like our section that is set up in the original file for this particular assignment. So go ahead and we can set these up for this actually says 3/4 inch gypsum wallboard. I was playing around with things because you can then go in and set up separate materials to create different tags. So if I wanted to get back into this particular wall and get into the model here, this is 3/4 inch gypsum wallboard. That was something I was just playing around with to see how you can get this set up. So I could actually then go back in and I can find my 1/2 inch gypsum wallboard and then hit OK, and then hit OK again, and then that will then set up the 1/2 inch gypsum wallboard. This way, as you continue to go back through and you start making more detailed sections, you start having more materials that need to be replaced and tagged out, you can do this, and then it makes creating a detail section view a far quicker and easier event, not necessarily something you have to keep typing in information every time. You can use that material tag to tag different walls. If we were to go ahead and change this to be a 2x4 stud, we want to do that back in the material. We want to do that in the thickness, back in the material, set this up and make another layer in here for a 2x4 stud instead of a 2x6 stud. SPF is spruce pine fir, and then batt insulation. So I'd go ahead and just duplicate that particular material, and instead of being 2x6, we'll call it 2x4. Get rid of that duplication number 1, and then we'll change this in here. So this is 2x4 stud. I'm going to go ahead and change this in here as well. I'm just going to copy Control-C, Control-V this into here. So the description is set. It's all good. 2x4 stud now, 2x4 stud. Hit apply, hit OK. And then, of course, if I wanted this to be a 2x4, I would go ahead and change this in the thickness of the wall itself and hit OK. To do so, it should update. And it's actually going to go ahead and update all my walls. See how quickly this takes. Still updating. So after it finished updating, you can see this is now a 2x4 stud, SPF batt insulation. And the way I have the walls joined, everything cleaned up, everything worked out fine. This is a true 2x4 now. And then I should be able to even jump back in. If I wanted to change this back, I could go back in and change this up. Should have actually duplicated the wall in the beginning, and I could swap back and forth. So anyway, that's how this would work, so that you can go ahead and set these layers up, set these materials up. Makes it real quick and easy to go ahead and create detailed section views. So I hope this helps. Create details.